Welcome, dear judicial service aspirants. Today, in this session, we are going to visit the article by ex judicial officer. The article is that now time for diagnosis of the ills of subordinate judiciary. This article by P.L. Goel, advocate, additional district and session judge retired, is really eye opening. Let me read this article slowly so that we can imbibe the insight and deep concern with which this has been expressed by Mr. P.L. Goel. The article begins: the judges and the jurists of the country and also the print media often make mountain of a molehill in the matter of exercise of public interest litigation jurisdiction by the judges of the high courts. The same is much about nothing when there is no dispute that power of the judicial review or the functioning of the executive and the legislature for enforcing fundamental and other rights of the citizenry under our constitution vests in the judiciary. So while discharging the said responsibility, the judiciary is bound to cause some aberrations here and there. It is neither possible and nor expedient to lay down the so-called Lakshman Rekha. Need of the time now is for appropriate diagnosis of the ills of the subordinate judiciary, as the masses come only in contact of subordinate judiciary, where the litigant population generally feeling oppressed, depressed, suppressed, and compressed. The entire system is lying paralyzed metabolically and mentally. About 3.5 crores of cases are now said to be pending in the subordinate courts. Under the burden of such a huge backlog of cases, the entire system of subordinate judiciary is virtually choked. Hitherto, there have been only casual correctives by the peers at the helm of affairs without any proper investigation into the causes of malfunctioning of the subordinate courts. As a right-minded citizen, as an extinguished ex-participant in the system, I cannot help but remark that while such like occasional correctives by the peers may be well intentioned, but the same are certainly not adequate and not likely to fulfill the desired objectives till the diagnosis of the ills of the judicial system is properly done. Drowned under the weight of heavy bucket of work and other reasons which are in leisure, judges of the effects in the high courts perhaps do not have the time to realize the gravity of inefficiency syndrome in the lower judiciary, which is causing into its vitals and even more than the element of corruption. The judges accordingly chant the mantra that the only problem in the ranks of the subordinate judiciary is of the pendency of a large number of cases for which increase in the number of subordinate courts is almost invariably suggested as a panacea. The above said approach is only casual and cannot care the ills. In Punjab and Haryana subordinate courts, of which I have a personal experience of 47 years, both as an ex-judicial officer and now as an advocate, there is no dearth of first appellate courts and the courts of civil judges come magistrates and the infrastructure for last about 1 decade, but the working is still fast deteriorating because of changed work culture. Earlier, only a decade back, practically all the presiding officers of the first appellate courts used to give dictation of evidence in all cases themselves, but now the said practice has been almost given a complete go-by, and the resultant effect is that there is no control over the subordinate proceedings which go unregulated. Most of the session judges do not record statements of the accused under Section 313 of the Code of Criminal Procedure properly, and the public prosecutors frame the questions and answers thereto dictated by the defense counsel, flouting very purpose of recording of such statements. In most of the courts, judgments orders are not pronounced in an stipulated dates, and later on the orders are manipulated by showing as if the said orders were pronounced within the stipulated period of 7 days of hearing arguments and within 15 days of the conclusion of evidence. Only three or four bail applications in a day are signed to each court, and even the said bail applications are sometimes not disposed of on the same day. There is no capacity of giving dictation of even a few simple and short sentences in the open court. This may be because of twin reasons that either there is no capacity to dictate the orders in the open courts, or the presiding officers shun the dictation in the open court, apprehending interference from the counsel appearing before them. In the matrimonial courts and also before the accident claims tribunal, evidence is being recorded not by the officers or even by the stenotypist. The said evidence is being recorded by the advocates as local commissioners, and the manner of recording of evidence is most shabby. One cannot find even three sentences consecutively. The disposition of the witness is recorded in this manner in which there are not two, three mistakes, which is disguising and gives such a shabby and poor impression about the working that the same is nauseating. At the level of magistracy, a sort of fixed market is created in most of the courts where evidence is being recorded at two, three places in criminal cases simultaneously with the court stop without any effective, nay, even the remote supervision of the presiding officers. On civil side, the legislature amended the Code of Civil Procedure 1908 recently by prescribing that examination chief the witness will be by way of affidavits so that precious time in the courts was saved. The said amendment is nullified virtually by the entire subordinate judiciary by obtaining affidavits of witnesses on one date and then adjourning the case some other date for cross-examination of the witnesses, which is causing an acute hardship and inconvenience to the witnesses who are compelled to come to court even more than twice for the same purpose. Primarily, lawyers are responsible for this malady as they take the stand that they had not gone through the affidavits of the witnesses and the same was supplied to them on that very day. Further, in the amended Code of Civil Procedure, at the most, three adjournments are permitted to a party to lead its evidence in support of the case. But after concluding evidence in most of the cases, numerous adjournments are being granted by leading rebuttal evidence and for addressing arguments, as neither the advocates are ready for addressing arguments soon after the concluding evidence and nor the presiding officers are willing to hear arguments. Judges of the apex and the high courts have shown serious concern on occasion regarding the malady of the winning over of the witnesses by the accused, especially in heinous offences. This ego is but natural, but the dignitaries do not realize the diamond hard, stark reality that instances are not lacking where the smarter judiciary itself is contributory to this malady. In some courts, even session trials are being adjourned just on the asking of the unscrupulous advocates till the inconvenient witnesses come round. I have a personal experience of appearing in a session trial in one of the courts in Haryana, where a complainant in a sessions case did not appear consecutively for more than 15 hearings, even though every time he was outside the court premises. He was insisting for payment of money to him. I personally appraised the judge concerned about the situation, but he pleaded helplessness by stating that he could not do anything when the witness was not before him. Subsequently, when the said trial came to be transferred on the file of Honorable Session Judge in routine, when the matter was brought to his notice, and this time the Session Judge took the embarks and called that witness from outside the court premises by sending the night court, and the only statement of the said witness could be recorded. In yet another murder case in Haryana, the defense counsel got adjourned the sessions trial on three dates so that he could manage compromise between the parties. When I, as a counsel for the complainant, protested on the fourth adjournment and requested for a short adjournment. Then, in the open court, the said advocate had even the audacity of stating within the hearing of the judge that before the next short time, I myself could be killed. The honorable judge had not the guts to initiate proceedings for contempt of court against the said advocate. Next day, when I submitted application for initiating contempt of court proceedings in the said matter, then the same was returned by telling me that I myself could move the said complaint for initiating contempt of court proceeding before the High Court. Concern regarding the low rate of conviction in cases is also not entirely correct. The public perception of this direction is blurred by media hype. People and even the honorable judges are failing to discern that the penal provisions of dowry deaths and dowry related cases are generally being misused by the complainant. Even in most of the cases complaining rape, where victims were more than 18 years of age, the allegations of rape are on the face of them false. Police is also registering a large number of false cases under Section 399 and 402 IPC. In the dowry related and false rape cases, the accused are being blackmailed, and when they pay money to the complainants, then the matters are settled and the cases go in acquittal with the resiling of witnesses. Again, the common and the general perception today is that an accused in a civil is a devil and complainants are poor victims. Even this projection needs correction. Instances are not uncommon when even innocent persons have to languish in jails for considerable periods without there being even semblance of evidence because of unwarranted dismissal of their bare applications and unwarranted convictions. Personal uncodified formulas have been evolved even at the high court levels that sentences of those who have been awarded imprisonment for a trial courts for a period exceeding 3 years will be suspended only after the convict first undergoes one-fourth of the sentence imposed, even though there may not be the slightest evidence against them. Then, in some cases, even this formula is not adhered to. The height of the inefficiency and bankruptcy of mind will be evident to the readers if I am permitted to quote 3-4 instances in which I myself had been the counsel. In one case, the High Court had directed the additional session judge to grant exemption to the accused on an application being moved before him on such terms and conditions as deemed appropriate. When application was moved, the London additional session judge complied with the High Court order by giving direction that the said accused was to attend the court in person at the stage of framing of charge during recording evidence of the prosecution, recording of the statements under Section 313 CRPC at the time of hearing arguments, and of course at the time of judgment. The readers will wonder as to what dates were left out on which the accused was not to appear. In one more case, the petitioner husband failed to pay interim maintenance ordered against him in matrimonial proceedings under Section 13 of the Hindu Marriage Act 1955. On the date when the case was fixed for recording the evidence, instead of debarring the husband from proceeding with the case, the additional session judge sent him behind bars without there being any execution petition from the side of the wife. It was observed that these powers were being exercised under Section 125(3) of Code of Criminal Procedure 1973. In yet another case, there were allegations against some police officers that they had fired shots upon an innocent citizen when he refused to cough up money on their demand, which resulted into his instant death. The police came out with the counter version that they had simply given signal for stopping, but there was firing upon the police party, and the police party had to retaliate in defense. It was thus not the case of any of the two parties that citizen died because of rash and negligent firing by the police. However, the London Additional Session Judge framed charge under Section 304A IPC, which covers death by rash and negligent acts. The said Additional Session Judge even refused to rectify the charge when appropriate application was moved under Section 216 of the Code of Criminal Procedure. I refrained from quoting more instances showing total non-application of mine in cases by which the subordinate judiciary. For the inefficiency syndrome, there is liability of the bar also, as without effective assistance of the counsel requesting the case, there must be proper and effective verdict. One is lucky today if he gets a correct verdict in his cause. Justice is psychological seeming of every human being, and yet one has to depend upon his stars for a correct verdict. And let me hasten to just clarify that corruption and workload are not the only cases behind this remedy. Oliver Wendell Holmes Jr. once remarked, "This is court of law, young man, not a court of justice." The underlying scarcism in this bar should generate and fuel the impulse of law courts and the advocates to turn the law courts into courts of justice. In the words of Edison, to be perfectly just is an attribute of the divine nature. To be so to the utmost of our abilities is the glory of man. It is this spirit which must motivate the bar and the judiciary to strive to realize its full potential and convert it into kinetic energy. Legal fraternity has a great responsibility to ensure the process to achieve the true object of justice to all. The judges have to a duty to perform, which is more onerous to keep the judicial ship afloat on even keel. Sensitivity to all that we perceive, proper storage of all materials, intelligent docking, and developing the right impulses by training of the mind are sure to help in the development of perception needed to dispense justice according to law. The process is going in everyone, but a conscious effort to develop the proper perception is the need. The ideal is difficult to achieve, but the duties of the public oblige us to do our best. P.L. Goyal, advocate. Dear friends, let us revisit this write up. Let us imbibe the concerns. Let us be alive to these concerns. Thank you very much.